You're listening to Tapestry, a podcast by a music lover for music lovers. I'm your host, Kelly. Join me as I learn more about the common thread that weaves throughout our lives, music. On today's episode of Tapestry, I have a chat with some of the members from Raleigh, North Carolina's Raid the Quarry. Dan, Aaron, and Brian join me to talk about their new album, Temporary Cemetery, our shared musical influences, and ideas on how to promote their music and interact with fans, some of them including ice cream. You're listening to a little bit of the song Ghost Town off of their newest album. Officially, I have 3 of the 4 members of Raid the Quarry, and you guys are from Raleigh, North Carolina. Consider you kind of a alternative rock, hard rock sort of band, and a lot of your influences are all bands that I love. I know you mentioned stuff like Anne Boleyn, Red Hot Chili Peppers, Foo Fighters. Yeah. I love the classic Crime. P.S. I have never had anybody on my show list them as an influence, and I'm so happy about that. They're one of my favorite bands.
That's awesome that you said that. It's funny specifically that you call out the classic Crime, because that was probably the name that got Aaron and me together in the first place. We can talk more about that maybe, but that was an influence. I was like, nobody else knows this band, and they were pretty influential for me.
Yeah, they're incredible, and I always think it's funny because I was not really raised in a religious household. I've been pretty neutral on that my whole life, and yet I listened to like so many of the Christian rock bands that were super popular in the 2000s, like Thousand Foot Crutch, Skillet, Switchfoot, all those guys. And I still listen to them now. So whenever you send in those as your influences, I was really excited. But before I get too far and start asking you guys individual questions, why don't you each just kind of go around and just give an introduction of what your role is in the band and your name, and we can go from there.
Well, I'm Dan, and I play guitar and sing. I've just kind of started the band with Aaron a few years ago now, and as just kind of a way to play all these songs that I was writing, and so I'm kind of the band dad.
I'm Brian. I also play guitar and sing some. I don't know, what are my other roles? Chef, cleaner.
Banter organizer.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm Aaron. I play bass, and I guess I'm the goofball in the band.
Class clown, if you will.
Class clown, yeah.
The Michelangelo to our... Yeah.
Aaron, I can actually confirm that because when I was researching you guys, I found that one interview you did on YouTube that
good.
I guess went very, very poorly in the eyes of Dan. And the one thing I wrote down that I thought was hilarious was I think, Dan, you had asked him, like, what are you typically doing whenever you're not at practice? And your answer was like, oh, I'm usually busy chucking babies out of windows to women who may need a baby. Yep. And I'm like, wow, this is going to be a fun interview. Okay, so Aaron's the class clown and bassist. That's perfect. And I know Trey is not here. He's your drummer. He's probably pitifully stuck
He's
in
performing
traffic.
his usual role right now. So.
Oh, Trey. Poor Trey. He'll have to listen back to this and then shake his fist at you guys all later. But so I did, I know I was reached out to by your manager, and they were kind of just asking me to specifically focus a little bit on your new release, which pretty much came out this week, called Temporary Cemetery. And I've had a couple listens to it now, and I really enjoy it. And it's definitely up my alley when it comes to alt rock, kind of that heavier, grungier stuff. But why don't you guys tell me a little bit about how that album came to be and what your plans are with it?
I mean, I guess it's not a concept record or anything. It's kind of just a culmination of what we've been doing as a band over the last couple of years. We put our EP out back in 2016, and it was more kind of streamlined in a particular style, like a little bit punk, post-hardcore kind of thing, pedal to the metal. And as we've kind of evolved as a band and done more shows and written things kind of, or jammed in the in practice space and everything, I think that the palette of what we do has kind of been more defined and also expanded. And so these songs are kind of just the songs that we've been playing mostly live for a while. And just after that kind of came to see what we had and what themes kind of were emerging through what we were writing.
And it was also just the practicality of, we have 10 songs, so let's just put them on a record and put it out.
Okay, fair enough. Yeah, because I know Priority One, your 2016 release, was a shorter album.
Was it that long ago? Gosh.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was December of 2016, so it's been 2.5 years almost.
That's crazy how time flies. But yeah, I mean the new record I think is a pretty hard hitting one, and it's maybe a little bit more developed than your first release.
Okay.
So as a band though, so you've been around since 2014, and you guys seem to be fairly busy. I was just scrolling through your Instagram and your Twitter and a bunch of other places, and like you've played all kinds of stuff, like beer festivals and a bunch of different things in and around the Raleigh area. I actually saw that you played with my friends in Lines in the Sky. I'm planning on having Jesse from Lines in the Sky on.
Yeah, they were great.
Yeah, that kind of makes sense because they're from Nashville. They're not probably too many hours of a drive from you guys. But what would you say is your priority when it comes to playing out and about and just getting your name out there?
I think the priority probably for us right now is to break out of the triangle of Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill, because we've kind of become, not, I don't want to say a fixture, but we're,
local legends.
we played with a lot of people in the triangle. Yeah, so we played a lot of the major venues around here for bands our size, and so I think the next thing is really just to take it on the road a little bit and try to meet some new people and get some new ears on our music.
So make it into a circle.
Yeah. Get rid of the triangle and give it no
Or
corners.
a slightly bigger triangle.
No, that's a good ambition. Do you have any tour plans coming up just with this whole album cycle release?
No, I wish I did. Honestly, we were putting everything into just promoting the album and doing this release show that we're doing in a little less than 2 weeks. It's been a lot for people who have 9-to-5s and are just kind of cranking it out.
We do a lot of shows as a touring bands, and these bands will show up, and it's like watching someone else like go off a high dive or something. Like, man, that looks kind of cool, but also dangerous at the same time.
Yeah.
Why do they want to do that?
Yeah, that's true. That's a huge leap to take, and for a lot of bands, it's like I feel like you probably have to ask yourself the question: okay, am I ready, or have we quote unquote made it? Like, you can't tell the future, but and there's never a time when you're going to be ready. I think you just have to do it. But I would say this new album is a really fun one to listen to, and I'm sure you guys put on a great live show. Obviously, I'm nowhere close to you, but if I ever had the chance, I'd come out and see you. But let me
live. It's much better.
Yeah, I'll make a road trip. Let me take a step back, actually, and just talk a little bit more about all three of you individually. I'm always curious when I bring people on my show, like if there's any grand backstory in how you got into performing music and writing music, or if any of you are like secretly a professional harp player or bassoon player or something crazy, or if you all just kind of picked up your instruments at a certain time and rolled with it.
Well, you guys might have some more mysterious talents than I do. Aaron, didn't you play tuba?
Yeah, I guess I'll go.
Right on.
So, I used to play tuba 5th grade through 11th grade, which I hated. Dreaded it. Actually was not into music at all. But my senior year, I was offered to play upright bass. And so I learned how to play that in 7 months for the nationals. And then that's how I got into play electric bass.
Oh, no way. What was the thing you hated most about tuba? Because I learned tuba for a brief stint in my high school musical, and I also kind of hated it.
It was heavy, cold. A lot of people didn't like it, and you ran out of breath really easily.
Fair enough.
I just assumed it was the rests.
Yeah, the waiting around for your 3/4 of the song until you have to come in.
That too.
Okay. That's an interesting journey.
Yeah.
It's true. They always say you do have to play the rests. But, okay, so we have the 2 guitarists left. How did you guys come
I was also in the school band. I played trumpet and baritone. I still, to this day, think there's similarities between the marching band and like a rock band where like they're both multiple pieces, they're both very loud, they can be percussive. But I got into guitar because when I was a freshman in high school in 2007, if you wanted to be cool, you had to either play football, skateboard, or play guitar. And football wasn't happening. I tried and failed at skateboard, so I left guitar. I was like, I guess I'll do this.
Why not all 3 at the same time?
Right?
Good choice.
Yeah, and then for me, I was like many kids, just forced to take piano lessons that I hated. I never practiced, even though I was always musical. Like I liked, I was interested in music and liked to sing, but the piano just was boring to me. I didn't see where it was going because I was dumb. Obviously it has a ton of relevance to every other instrument, but I wanted to play rock and roll, and I figured the way to do that was to play guitar. I actually joined a band in high school that my friends started, and I was the keyboard player in that band. That was a band that had a keyboard player. That's the kind of band that it was. And when our lead guitar player quit, I was like, well, I guess I'm going to play guitar. So
you came into it kind of late as well.
Yeah, I was a late bloomer. I didn't start playing guitar until I was 16.
Oh, wow. Yeah, that is fairly late. But I just always like hearing from people, like, did they just feel like this was part of their blood and they had to follow this passion, or they just sort of fell into it and then things just worked out really well as a band?
I just remember like the strong pull towards just being in a band. Like I think I got my first guitar on a Saturday, and then by the next Friday had a band. Couldn't play the guitar at all. Like, who knows? It didn't matter because as long as you're in a band, you're good.
Oh yeah, for sure.
What looking back on that now, like, do you feel some of the same feelings about that sense of brotherhood, or have your ideas on being in a band changed?
I think it's just tough to play an instrument by yourself unless you're very, very good. Unless you're some symphonic first chair violin who can rip through some classical thing. You kind of need other people to lean on and learn from and grow from. And so it's easier with a band around you.
Right.
Yeah, and for me, I couldn't create the kind of thing that I wanted, by myself, because I'm the kind of person where, I'd be like, oh, well, I can write this, and so, it should be all my ideas should come to fruition, and but you find out that, especially if you love this kind of music, is, obviously you need the band, and so that forces you to, become a team player and to, learn how to rely on other people to create a vision together.
Yeah, well said. I'm at that point in my life where I only play solo, and the times I cherish most are the times I get to actually jam with people. And I mean, friends, my boyfriend, whoever, it doesn't matter. Would you say that sort of chemistry is really important to you guys? Like, walk me through your writing and practicing process.
It's almost a crutch sometimes when, like, say you come in with the skeleton of a song, like a layup, and you really don't know what the lead riff for this one chorus should be, and then say you write a riff and it sounds like every other riff you've ever written in your life that's been played many times. It's almost nice to have that backup in a way those other musicians reconsider, does anyone else have any ideas? And then it doesn't sound quite like you all the time. It's a little fresher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, usually what happens is one of us comes in with a song that's either mostly done or maybe it's just a skeleton. And then, I think we're at the point now we kind of know what the other people are going to bring to it and kind of an idea where those things are going to go. But yeah, it might end up really different than you imagined it. And sometimes that's the best thing because it gets you out of your own head.
Yeah, absolutely. Have you guys, like, prior to 2014, when you started Raid the Quarry, were you guys all friends before, or did you sort of fall into this kind of by chance?
I wouldn't say chance, more like searching.
Yeah,
Craigslist.
business.
Craigslist? Okay.
Men seeking men.
There was a flyer shaped like a bicep.
Oh yeah.
Getting creative.
It's ever since I was in that band in high school I was in a band in high school that was with there were two girls in the band, and just kind of by the way that was, it ended up poppy, and I always wanted it to be like heavier and more aggressive, and that's just where I was musically, and I kept trying to start a band, like the band that I wanted to make, that was going to play these songs that I was writing, these heavier songs, and it just didn't work out for like, I don't know, maybe like 7 or 8 years. And then I just couldn't find people, and never took off. And so it wasn't until I moved to Raleigh that, actually, again, talking about the classic crime connection, if it comes back, Aaron had put a Craigslist ad up looking for people who were going to play music like Thousand Foot Crutch and the Classic Crime. You named a couple others. I don't remember who they all were.
Yeah, Skillet, Switchfoot, probably
And so I was like,
K, stuff like that.
Well, yeah. And so I was like, oh, here's a guy who knows some of the things, some of the people that I know. Maybe, he has a similar idea about what he wants to do. Maybe has a similar background of where he's coming from. And so, that's how we got connected originally.
Okay. I've actually only heard good success stories from Craigslist bands, at least in terms of the guests I've had on my podcast. So just saying.
Craigslist has this weird, it's like a reputation. People think it's this shady thing. And maybe it is shady for some stuff, but like, I think the music section, it is like honest, genuine musicians who are just trying to start bands. It's like kind of a diamond in the Craigslist rough.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But yeah, at least 2 people now I can think of, they got an entire band together, like in some cases like cross country on Craigslist. So that's it's a totally doable thing. Now, I've had another guest on my show from North Carolina, and I remember asking him, I'm from Pittsburgh. I don't go to the Carolinas that much, even though I have relatives there. And so I'm not all that well versed in what the scene is like there. And I kind of maybe wrongfully assumed that it's pretty saturated with country music, but do you guys face any major challenges like getting airplay and stuff, or do you kind of feel like the Raleigh scene and that whole triangulation sort of area, like, do you kind of fit in there, or do you feel like you really have to push to get an audience?
I think it's pretty talented in general. I mean, not even like thinking of genres, just I feel like especially when we're first starting out, like we'll open for bands and I'll walk away thinking like, that was one of the best live shows I've ever seen. And there's 8 people there. Like, this band is awesome. And like, I guess it's that competitive.
It really is.
It is that way. We definitely have seen pretty pro bands put on some pretty great shows and play to really small crowds. I think there's part of it, it's just there's so much going on, at least relatively speaking. I come from a small town, so some people, if you're from D.C. or New York, you're like, oh, Raleigh's like a podunk town. Yeah. But to me, it's a city, and there's plenty of musicians. There's a lot of interest, and this is a rapidly growing area. I think when I came to the scene, there was a lot of what I would call like alt folk or alt country, or like kind of, Avett Brothers are super big here. They're royalty in this area. And I think a lot of people were doing that kind of thing. The kind of indie revival, I don't know. I'm bad with genres, but
there's a banjo in the band. That's
yeah,
there's a banjo in the band. Yeah.
I totally get what you're going for there.
And so I always kind of thought, we're usually, if we get hooked up on a bill, we're usually either like the loudest band by a lot or like the only band that's not like a metal or hardcore band. So I feel like it's finding that kind of middle of the road place that are playing like melodic, like modern rock, like we're playing. There's not as much there that really, I think that's overlap. So hopefully that means we're filling a void. I don't know.
No, that's good. Well, that actually, that's a good segue into something I've been just hearing a lot about lately. The band that comes to mind, not in terms of what you guys sound like at all, but the band I'm thinking of is Greta Van Fleet, and people talk a lot about them when they consider the opinion that rock and roll is dead and there's nothing new under the sun, blah, 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 and they're looking at bands like Greta Van Fleet as a sign that rock and roll is not dead, even though they're essentially a Led Zeppelin tribute band, in my opinion. Mm-hmm. They do it very well, but they're not reinventing the wheel. But in your experience, how would you approach that topic that rock and roll might be dead?
I don't think it's dead. I think it's just resting. I mean, that's a popular thing to say, but just because it doesn't get the radio play that pop or rap does these days, I mean, I can still turn on college radio on just about any given day and hear a band that's new or relatively new that's playing some good alt rock. And just because they don't get exposure, I think it's unfair to say it's dead. I think it's just, in terms of fads and trends, it's just kind of on the downswing. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
I would also say that it's maybe just people aren't looking in places. They just go to a certain place and say, oh, there's no one here. There's no rock. It's just like pop, country, folk. But if you're not looking for it, you're not going to find it. So
that's absolutely true.
And rock is not ska. Like it's not quite the flash in the pan movement. I mean, we're talking about a major American music genre. And so, it'll mutate, and I think it will come back in a way. And there's definitely like people now that are my age that have nostalgia for the rock and roll that they grew up with. And I'm seeing that in like, there's kind of a thing going on here in Raleigh, like where the kind of emo bands are coming back and like pop punk. And a lot of people are suddenly becoming nostalgic for like Blink-182. When I was in high school, you were dumb if you listened to Blink-182. Like that's not real music. They're like, they make fun of you for listening to 3-chord punk. But like now people are like, oh, Blink-182 was so great. So I think there's a lot of people maybe that grew up with that sort of thing that are going to come back around to, hey, where's the rock and roll?
Yeah. Are you guys all like 90s kids? That's what I thought you were close to in age. Okay.
I am, no.
I mean, I was born in the 80s, but yeah.
That's
I grew up in the 90s.
So like late 20s, early 30s. Okay, because the Blink-182 thing, I feel you on that. And even like here in Pittsburgh, we have he's actually another podcaster. He's in a death metal band, but he helps put on like an emo night every month, and they have some other pop punk revival type of thing. You're totally right. All that stuff is very, very in vogue right now. But okay, I just wanted to get your opinion on the whole rock and roll is dead, because I don't...
It's like it has to go through this whole life cycle of, like, it comes out and it's cool, and then it goes through a period where it's not cool anymore, and then like the nostalgia boomerang comes back around again, and now it's cool again.
Yeah, and like 80s revival, sort of like people have a nostalgia now for the like the electronic kind of thing that happened in the early to mid 80s. So you got to wonder, is hair metal next?
Oh, please no. Well, I don't
skip that and go right back onto grunge.
Yeah, that's true. We're like
what
going in
about
weird
grunge hair
cycles.
metal?
Oh, that would probably be Steel Panther, if you've ever listened to Steel Panther. That's like the closest I can think of. That's really true though, because synthwave is very popular right now, and that is just straight up 80s worship, but done with modern production, which is probably why I like it. So everything comes full circle. Okay. So in terms of like, I think it was Aaron, you were, if I'm getting that right, I think it was Aaron who had said, you're not going to find something that you're not looking for. How have you guys best grown your popularity and success? Has it been a lot of feet on the ground, just talking to fans at shows and hustling your ass off, or, like, was your strategy trying to get physical sales or radio play, or like, what's the definition of success for you guys?
What is this popularity and success you speak of?
That's something we've actually been discussing recently of how to grow as a band. And I personally have a business degree, so I've been trying to use marketing techniques to get people interested. So I've just been like talking to everyone after shows or just people I meet and say, hey, I'm in a band, listen to this. If they're interested in it, I'm helping them out, see how they can get involved and see what they want to do. So I also started doing like a local ice cream review thing where I bring out the fans and have them try ice cream with me and just discuss what they think about ice cream and talk about music.
That is a great idea. If you get that off the ground, please hit me up and I will promote the shit out of that on every podcast channel I have. It's kind of like have you ever seen Hot Ones? The one, yeah. Somebody told me I should do that. I'm like, no, I don't have the tolerance for the spice level. I think that's a great idea though. So hopefully, just by saying it out loud, you're gonna manifest that and it'll come true.
Yeah. And what's funny is we call it like Raid the Creamery since we're Raid the Quarry, but they're going to the creamery.
So. It's a very high concept.
I love it.
You like to think you'll get it later, yeah.
Oh my god. Raid the Creamery. I love that. Where did that band name come from to begin with?
A magician never gives away his secrets.
Oh, come on.
As an SEO trick.
Because there aren't very many bands that have a Q in their name?
That's actually a good thought. There are no other bands that have our name. Let's put it that way.
That's step one, making sure it's not taken.
It's important. You got to be able to have that web handle. No, just like kind of what I was talking about earlier with, filling a void in the scene. And I feel like as long as I've been playing music, there's been kind of that same hole in the scene, because before it was alt country and folk, it was, screamo and shoegaze and all that was what everybody was playing where, when I was like in high school and so, but I've always just been all about melody and about, the big riffs and the singable choruses. And that's, what I latch onto. And so part of it, was just about, again, being that, or even just talking about rock is dead. I mean, we want to still be rock bands. Like that's true to us and what the music that we love. And we're going to keep putting that out there, regardless of whether it's popular or not. And hopefully it'll become popular again, but it's kind of around that. I don't know if I'll go into the whole concept of it. Maybe one day we'll do a comic book that explains the whole thing.
The actual Raid the Quarry name, you mean?
Yeah, I feel like it kind of came to me as a visual comic in my head and worked its way back out to a name.
I do like the name for what it's worth. It's cool and it kind of rolls off the tongue, and it does make you wonder what that means. Like, who is raiding the quarry and what is there?
That's a good thought.
Again, very high concept, a very smart thing.
We're artists and intellectuals.
Yeah.
We're all wearing turtlenecks right now.
Oh man.
Push up your glasses. So, speaking of that, actually, like the, kind of putting these different layers of meaning and stuff into the name, or I'm a huge fan of good wordplay in song titles and lyrics and stuff, and I was going over some of the lyrics from your new album, Temporary Cemetery, and there's definitely some interesting topics you mentioned, and I know, I don't want to get into politics. You'd said, hey, let's not bring up politics, but I certainly think there are some themes on this album that kind of touch on freedom of speech and, like going along with the herd, that sort of stuff. You said it's not a concept album, but in general, like what makes you want to write music to speak to those different thoughts running through your mind?
You want to start it?
It's usually just like almost like an episode of where you may be at in your life or what's going on at that time. And sometimes there may be multiple themes, so I guess they get tied together. But I feel like the trick to writing good lyrics is to write them fast. If you write them all in, maybe not one sitting, but like the quicker you do them, the more concise maybe they'll be. Because I've written stuff where like maybe you get half of it done and you come back weeks later trying to finish it, and you kind of end up with two halves because maybe, I don't know, you kind of got to strike while the iron's hot and get the whole thing out while it's one cohesive idea.
Yeah, I think it's all about definitely just being, honest and reflective about where you are and, things you're going through, what's important to you. And sometimes that's a way to kind of suss out your, what those things are. Like a lot of times I don't necessarily know what I think until I write it, One of the things that I kind of do also is I've tried my hand at writing movie reviews, and a lot of times I'm like, I don't know what my conclusion is about this movie until I've actually written 1,000 words on it, and then it comes out and you see what it is when you have it in front of you. And so I think for us, like I said, there's no concept, because really, Brian and I writing these lyrics is kind of just about what's important to us. How do we just express that in a way that's honest? And I think that if you put out your specific experience for people, even though it's not their experience, that they can relate to that, more so than if you tried to imagine what it would like for them. I don't know.
And sometimes those experiences end up like almost like a time capsule in a way. Like some of these songs, like we said, are a few years old now. And I'll go back and I'll just like hear these lyrics in practice and think like, man, that sounds so whiny. Did I really write that? But I mean, you almost have to like take it, and I mean, not all memories are good. Some are embarrassing, bad. I'm not saying the lyric is bad, but it's a reflection into a past feeling, I guess.
Yeah, it really is. I mean, Swift Epiphany is essentially a breakup song. I'm married now. I'm hoping I never have to write that song again. And so I don't resonate with it now the way that I did then, but it's a kind of a way to capture that moment in time and the emotions that were there, and you can kind of return to it in a controlled way through those things.
Yeah, I actually had that one written down because I really liked that one paired line that says, "So here's a lesson in letting people down. I got my bachelor's in not sticking around." I just was like, oh, this has to be a sad breakup song. It's gotta be. And then I kind of read it. I'm like, oh, yeah, okay, got it. I usually like to ask people too, and I know you've already answered this, but
you've really done your research. I got to say, I appreciate that. No. All the way to going to Aaron's video and watching that.
No,
I really feel like
you.
you're giving us a fair shake here.
Look, you're going to ask me about J.J. Abrams.
I have lots of different people on my show, and all I try to do is show up with at least some semblance of what the hell I'm talking about. But so that's I appreciate you appreciating me. No, and I'm a big word nerd. I love good lyrics. I actually did my thesis project in college on a band, and it was all about their lyrics and kind of how poetic they are. So I'm super appreciative of people who can write something that's approachable, but also has a deeper meaning for them personally. And I love when you can find a band that has a good takeaway like that. I mean, again, back to the classic Crime. As I said at the beginning of this, I've never been a religious person, and I know that the guys in the classic Crime are, and it has never once deterred me from listening to their music, because it's not so explicitly about faith or worship or anything that it would turn me off, but they write such eloquent things that I feel like I could apply some of their words and some of their music to other things I'm going through in my life, whether it's about God or not.
Have you heard the most recent one, what's it called? The one with holy water?
Yeah, I actually helped crowdfund it, yes.
Okay, well, so did I. So maybe our names were in there together. But
yeah.
McDonald writes such honest lyrics, and it almost just aches sometimes to listen to it, and you're like, wow, this guy's really pouring his heart out. But I think, like you say, that's whether you're in that place that he's in or not, you can appreciate that and you can empathize with that.
Yeah, and his delivery and stuff is so good too. It's kind of weird now that I think about it. I'm seriously thrilled to have a guest on that really appreciates that band, because a lot of my friends are not religious at all, and they're like, "Oh, you listen to Christian rock?" I'm like, "Yeah, what are you going to do about it?" But the classic Crime, actually, they're the first band I ever sang acoustically in a smaller setting in front of people, and that was like a huge moment for me because I really hated the sound of my voice, and I sang The Test off their Seattle Sessions EP. And I love that album. I go back to it all the time. And I'm actually trying to get my boyfriend to learn Blindfolded on guitar so I can sing it with him, because you're right, it's just they're such honest songs, and they're just incredible. They barely write a song that doesn't make me feel moved in some way. And I can see you guys kind of have taken that torch. I think your music has an energy to it that would totally connect with me if I were an audience member watching you perform. Have you ever had a particularly memorable like connection with a fan, or like a moment playing out where you're like, yeah, okay, this is what we're doing this for?
The first one that comes to mind, we were playing Deep South, R.I.P. Deep South. Right?
Yeah.
And I think we were headlining. Anyway, we're the last band to go on, and the crowd kind of dwindled down a little bit. But there was this group of three by the bar, and I just overheard them talking. And this one guy says, "Oh yeah, I want to make sure and catch this last band. That's the one I'm here to see." And it's kind of rare for us to have someone come to the show who is not a friend or family member. So to have a complete stranger say it and just kind of like overhears a fly on the walls, like maybe this is worth it.
Oh.
Oh yeah, when somebody sees you, like we had some people see us at we were playing like an open air festival, so people were just wandering by and hearing part of the set, but they liked it enough that they remembered us and they came to our next show. Next time we came to the town, was like Chapel Hill, and so it's always just great to know that what you're doing, even if it's a small number of people, it's resonating with those people. And I think maybe. Even though I don't really consider what we do niche per se, like this sort of thing was, I think, had broader appeal than, again, maybe a few years ago. But obviously, it's something that still resonates with us, and so those people that are out there, they're going to respond to it, and so it's for them.
That warms my heart, because that's how I'm like a huge fangirl of many things. So. I always like hearing when the fangirling goes appreciated. It's not like notice me and, validate my feelings for the music you make, but it's really a way to connect with people in a very genuine way. And like you said, that's got to make you feel great hearing somebody out there go, hey, we really enjoy this.
It does. And we talk about, like, more often than not, I talk about our friends. I don't really even use the word fan, not because it's some kind of calculated choice, but just because, for the most part, that's who's, interested in what we do, is people who are our friends. And then if didn't start that way, maybe they will be, and that's just, you're talking about building your success or whatever it might be earlier. I think it's just one or two people at a time that, are in your orbit, that relate to what you're doing.
Okay. That's good to hear, because there's a lot of people that get into the music industry, I think, for a lot of really crappy reasons, or they have super unrealistic expectations about what it's going to be like and what the motivations are. And it's good when you run into people who are just, they're out there doing their thing. They're maybe not trying to reinvent the wheel, but they're having a good time. They're writing stellar music. And really, I guess if you get off the stage and you feel like you made a connection with someone, that's probably pretty good.
I think it's almost a benefit to, we joke about lack of success, but the fact that there is like so little, like you're not going to make money playing these sets venues. You may get your friends to come out and like a few people interested, like we said, but like the fact that there's no like money or fame or anything, and I feel like that has weeded out the people who are in it for the wrong reasons. And the people who are left in these scenes are the ones who love the music that they're playing and are passionate about what they're doing. And so in a way, it's kind of just filtered out the people who maybe don't care as much.
True.
Yeah. I started it because I wanted to make connections with people, and that's the whole reason I wanted to do it, not for money. And if we made it big, we made it big. And if we don't, we had fun.
And we made something we could be proud of. I think that's what we talked about with this album, because people said, don't do the album because that's not what people are doing. It's a singles economy or whatever. And, we might release singles at some point, but the fact that we had the ability to do the album and really do, like, that's the format. If you're a rock band, that's kind of, the format that you kind kind of appreciate. I don't know. I feel like to be able to kind of take somebody on a journey for 45 minutes, that to me, that we can make something that we can be proud of and have, in perpetuity, really kind of outweighs a lot of the other concerns.
Kudos to that, because I am notoriously anti-single. Even with my favorite bands, pretty much, I will not listen to the singles if I can avoid it. I specifically avoid the singles. I'm like, why are you even giving this to me? I want to listen to the album from start to finish and experience it as it was meant to be experienced from the artists themselves, but I could just be being a giant pretentious douchebag right now, but that's how I prefer to experience my music. So that is an interesting choice in today's world where most people are, I think a lot of people are finding new music from like Spotify playlists and review blogs and stuff where you may only have an audience member or a potential fan's attention for one song.
Right.
But I guess I don't know, you got to switch it up. I think there's plenty of people out there that still appreciate the album format.
It's just pure economics, right? 10 is greater than 1.
Yeah.
Well, you're obviously an artist, so you're allowed to have your own pretentious opinions. So, I have plenty of my own. So.
Oh, I'm called out. No, I am kind of like, I don't want to say I'm snobby about certain things, but that is how I prefer to listen to music, is all kind of in one sitting. But I just listen to so much stuff. I can't always possibly listen to full albums at any given time. But I think that your latest album really is a great endeavor, and it's a step forward in your sound. But that being said, how long did it take you guys from the writing process for Temporary Cemetery to get, into a studio, get everything all nailed down?
Some of the songs are like 2014 or older, I think.
I mean, I started writing The Return probably 9 years ago.
And then and then compare that to like Liars and Thieves, that was written like the night before it was recorded. I think so they're kind of it's a broad spectrum. I think we knew that it was going to be 10, and at one point we were at like, I think 8, and like Patience was in progress, and Liars and Thieves was getting finished up. So it was like, all right, if we get to 10, we can have an album.
And you guys said you all have normal day jobs and stuff, right? Like, you're trying to squeeze this in on the
weekends. There was one funny thing, like everyone coming into the studio in their business slacks, and like, all right, time to rock out.
Yeah. He's straight from the office, yeah.
I feel it. Yeah, I was saying we were all like running late in traffic on the way here. Is there ever a point where you feel like, the music thing is starting to like itch at you from the inside, where you would want to make it your full-time job if you could, or are you comfortable with providing it as a side hobby sort of thing?
I think the stakes would just be too high, and it may not feel fun anymore.
Yeah.
No, I mean, I would absolutely do it as a full-time job if I thought it was viable. We're a long way from it being viable at this point, and I'm 33 years old. I'm probably not going to suddenly become a rock star at 33. So I have realistic expectations, but, Well,
I'm 26, so I still have my whole life.
There you go.
Never say never.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Well, what were some of the challenges then in just making this thing all come together?
I guess just in general, like, practice will not sound like an album. Like, you can have the full band with the guitars and everything's loud, and you're in a basement, so everything's compressed. And then you get in the studio, it's like, all right, let's start with one set of drums. And all of a sudden, like, everything is under a microscope, every snare hit, every fill, and there's nowhere to hide. You can't hide behind the white noise of the other guitars and the instruments. So everything's under a microscope. I guess that's true of every record.
Yeah, it's something that you discover when you go into the studio for the first time, or even if you just try playing something that you've written. Now you're playing it to a metronome, and the chorus is too fast or too slow, or I think that's every kind of inexperienced band hits that when they start. But yeah, well, and then just finding the right person and the right studio to do it with. We didn't really again, have a lot of money as a band. So we kind of had to, thankfully, Ryan at Crimson Moon kind of cut us a bit of a deal to do the whole record.
Negotiation.
So we were able to do the whole thing.
Well, they did a great job. I think the new album sounds very good. I mean, truthfully. So there's a lot of like good dynamic range, and it's a good, I don't know, for me, it's like a good blast in your car album, pretty much. So I think you hit the nail on the head there.
Good live in your car albums.
It's been living in mine.
Yeah, I listen to most of my music in my car, I feel like. Honestly, that's why I don't buy vinyls, really. But anyway.
Well, your car doesn't have a turntable?
No. Yeah, I installed one in the back seat, for sure.
Get with the times.
I reach around and flip over to the B-side when I'm at a red light.
There you
go. So, if you guys could, just thinking about, realistic goals, but then also trying to pass some optimism your way, if you could open for any band, who would it be? Or artist, or whoever, in a perfect world?
I mean, I would be hesitant to say any of my favorites because the bar would be set so high. But then again, I remember a couple summers ago, I saw Smashing Pumpkins, one of my favorite bands at Red Hat Amphitheater. It was Smashing Pumpkins and Marilyn Manson. But the opening band was so bad, I couldn't believe it. Like, these two huge acts had this awful opener. It was like two guys and a MacBook. I don't even know. It was bad. Anyway.
So you want to open up for
neither of those artists are deserving of a crappy laptop producer, sadly. You other two guys, or are you thinking about it?
I'm going to shoot straight for the moon. I'm going to say Switchfoot.
Oh, good choice. Yeah, I haven't kept up with them.
Mainly because I've seen them 11 times, and I got a shout out one time. And I was in the back row.
Wow, 11 times. That doubles my record of bands I've seen the most. Yeah, most is 6 right now. But, man, I'm going to go on a super binge listen after this interview's done for sure. Like, I'm just going to be probably blasting Flyleaf in my car maybe, or actually, funny enough, me, the person who's like, oh, I'm not really religious, but my number one most listened to song, period, like of my entire life, statistically, is a song by Fireflight.
Which one?
Unbreakable.
Oh, it's a great one.
Like, I don't have any tattoos, but I probably would get like all of that song tattooed on me somehow. I've literally listened to it over 4,000 times because I have like a Last FM account.
Last FM, I was gonna say.
Yeah, yeah. I've scrabbled it so many times.
I hope you got at least a little bit of Flyleaf vibe from the opening of Have Your Cake and Eat It Too, because I feel like that opening guitar riff is a little bit reminiscent of the Unbreakable riff.
Flyleaf. Okay, those are all great answers, by the way. So what is next on your guys' plate? You obviously are going to let this album kind of breathe and get it out there and try to tour and stuff, but what's next for Raid the Quarry in terms of writing and everything else?
Just keep running, I guess. I actually have this new one that we were trying to, like, still in the process of learning. It's been on hold while we get ready for the album, but I don't know. That's always my favorite part is, like, if you ask me what my favorite song to play is, it's going to be whatever's newest. So I always think the freshness of the new song is one of the best parts.
So you're like the kid in the toy store waiting for that new toy to come out, and then once the new toy comes out, you're like, oh, I want the new one.
Do they have toy stores anymore?
Yeah. They do. They do.
Toys R Us. Learning Express. Yeah, toys are gone.
Yeah, I guess once we do the release show, then I'll breathe for a couple of weeks, and then, yeah, maybe we can actually start writing some new songs. I feel like I haven't written anything in about a year, and this last year has just been crazy. So it'd be nice to actually put some new things down.
I think it'll also be fun if we went on like a trip for like a weekend and then tried to write something together. Like, we all go to the beach, we get in a boat, and then we just stay on the boat all weekend and pretend we're on the
every band needs their, like, Henry David Thoreau, I'm just going to go into the wilderness and write and get myself lost in it. I know a lot of artists do actually do that. I can't remember who it was, but there's some artists I used to listen to that would go out to Joshua Tree National Park and just, like, go sit in the middle of it and write everything for their next album and then Return to Civilization. But
I think that was a Pitbull, wasn't it?
I know Pitbull was the one who went to Alaska to do that show. I think there was like
Yeah, they voted him. That was cool.
yeah, which is pretty neat. Do you guys ever by chance like play with or open for like stoner rock type of bands? Because I have some friends up here that were trying to do a small, week run into like North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, that sort of stuff.
We don't really discriminate. I
I
mean,
feel like we've played with just about every kind of rock there is.
And hip hop.
And
Oh,
hip
yeah,
hop.
we did that one hip hop show that didn't go well.
Why did it not go well? Just awkward
We
pairing.
were just a square peg in a round hole.
we were the only rock band among a bunch of MCs, so we were kind of a little bit out of place. But I mean, it didn't go bad.
I enjoyed it. The one guy called us aliens.
I think there's another reason we were out of place there.
He called you aliens. Well, I mean, maybe that's true, but
no, I mean, we play for just about any kind of band, as long as I feel like usually I worry about the promoters like not wanting a schizophrenic bill, but as sometimes those are the most fun. I don't know.
schizophrenic bill. That's that's a really good way to put it. Sometimes I've learned about some bands I never would have found out about, I'm sure, had they not been put on a really, really strange bill. But as you know, that does not always work out. There's 3 of you guys here, so I was going to do just one, but for the hell of it, if you had to listen to only 3 albums for the rest of your life, what would they be?
Well, that's a tough question. I'll just shoot from the hip.
All right, I think I got my 3. Number 1 would be Them Crooked Vultures' self-titled album. It's pretty long. Every song's like 5 minutes, so it's a lot of bang for your buck. The second would be like some kind of white noise seascapes, like just the sound of waves crashing.
Oh, that's the first time I've ever had anybody answer that, but that's really smart, actually.
Yeah, it's a nice palette that they're thinking outside the box. And then third, I don't know, like some traditional Celtic music, maybe. Yeah, I
Wow.
think that's my 3.
That might be my most intriguing like trio ever answered, so way to go.
Aaron?
For me, I would have Skillet's Comatose album, Hammerlin's Cities album, and Weezer's Blue album.
Man, you had them like right there. Amberlin's another band I haven't listened to in way too long.
Yeah, Cities is a good choice.
Yeah.
Standard edition, you get more songs.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, so not to overthink the question, I guess I'll just go with some of my favorites. So probably it's the third one that's getting me, because it's like, do I go ska? Do I go post-hardcore? Do I go? Let's take a new one. In the spirit of this conversation, the Classic Crime, their second album.
Not Albatross, but
Not Albatross. The silver cord. Yeah, the silver cord. That one's a real journey. So we'll go silver cord. We'll go The Everglow by May.
oh yes, I highly approve.
And Learning to Breathe, Switchfoot.
Oh man, I
Wait, can I
gotta.
change my answer?
What?
I'm going to subtract the Crooked Vultures because I've heard it enough, and I'll do the Tarzan soundtrack.
That is officially the strangest 3 answers I've ever heard, I think, together, but it's beautiful. Like, I fully support it. Man,
Phil Collins went hard. He did that for us.
Tarzan, you guys have good taste, honestly. Oh man, I have so much listening to do now. There's so many albums I need to revisit that I haven't
You're
listened
going to go on a
since,
Disney
like,
binge, aren't you?
No, not even Disney, just all the stuff I listened to in like 2008 and still makes me happy now. Like, that's so funny you said The Everglow by May. I found out about May in 2006 because my friend had the lyrics to Anything in her AIM buddy profile away message.
Well, that pretty much nails the time period, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I was like, this sounds interesting. And then when I got my first job, I worked at a GNC store. I had binge listened that entire album so much that we would have like no customers for like 2 hours at a time, and I would just stock shelves and just sing that album to myself start to finish with nobody in the store because I loved it so much. So that's a fantastic answer. But
That's why all the GNCs got bought out by CBS, right?
I think it was before then. But oh man, I'm gonna have a lot of listening to do. I'm gonna have to match with you on Last FM and see how similar our tastes are, because I suspect it would be pretty high.
I warn you, my Last FM has not been updated since probably 2008. So,
see, that's when I got my account, was 2008, and I still use it all the time. But we'll see. We'll see where our tastes break down. But yeah, guys, do you have any other questions for me or any other topics that you want to cover?
What's your favorite song on the album?
Oh, God, I think initially, like on my very first listen through, I think I was drawn most to Liars and Thieves. It just has that kind of like pressing, really fun feeling to it, and they're all bangers. Like there's really not a bad track on the album. So I'm looking forward to what you guys come up with next.
you're a nice lady who says nice things.
No, I really mean it. I really mean it. I turn people down for interviews because I just, quite frankly, don't like their stuff, or I don't think they're going to be interesting. So clearly I said yes because I thought you guys would be interesting and you write interesting stuff. So I mean it.
Well, I appreciate it. This is really fun. What about where can we find your stuff? You're obviously a musician. Do you have what are you working on?
I'm working on trying to psych myself up to write music. I swear I've probably said that in like 8 of my almost 15 episodes now, like I'm gonna start writing music someday, and I don't know, I guess I always think that it's gonna be like this flashbulb moment where I just suddenly am stricken with the inspiration to do it, but I think I just have to change my approach because I play multiple instruments. I'm trying to work on becoming a better singer, and I certainly have a lot of feelings, and so it's kind of like, why would I naturally not be drawn to making my own music? I guess I just get a lot more out of performing other people's music. So I like doing covers of other people's stuff, but maybe in the future I'll actually get to write. But that was a good question though. Thank you.
Well, I hope you do. Yeah, sometimes, and that's the old adage, but that, 10% inspiration, 90% perspiration. Sometimes you're just staring down a notebook, willing it to come into existence. So, sometimes it's not all fun and games, but.
No, that's very true, but we'll see. Maybe I can follow up at some point when I have all these ideas for a solo album and I just don't even know where to start. So instead I just get paralyzed by the thought of I have too many ideas and then I just write none of them. But actually, I mean, do you have any suggestions for that, since, most of you guys kind of share in some of your writing duties?
One thing I like to do, ever since I guess I started playing guitar, if I was ever messing around and come up with a riff that I think could be good, I'll record it on my phone, even if it's just like 10 to 20 seconds. And then sometimes if I'm bored or doing something, I'll go back and listen to those and think, wow, this could be good in a song. And maybe I'll, like, over time, I'll amass a library. Because, like, right now, I had the same recording app for a while, and there's, like, quite a lot of riffs in there. And there's a lot of riffs in there that ended up on this album. Like, I remember writing You Did Good Kid, coming in with a skeleton. It was like, does this song have an intro? I was like, like, it's nice to be able to have that small personal library where you kind of pick that riff out of your pocket and paste it in. And that's kind of a relief, because there's a lot of those homeless riffs on this that now have a home on this album. So even if you come across an idea, no matter how small, either write it down, record it, put it in your pocket, and then maybe you look at it another day and be inspired, I guess.
It's very Horton Hears a Who. An idea is an idea, no matter how small. Yeah.
Oh man, I'll have to print that out and just convince myself to follow that advice, because I think I've pretty much had every musician I know tell me the same thing. They're like, just, it doesn't matter. You have to get over your fear and your I guess embarrassment's maybe not the right word, but it's kind of like, I'm sure both of you guys that do the vocals, you kind of at first like cringe hearing yourself sing, and cringe like humming into your phone or something. At least I do.
I'm still cringing now.
Yeah. You just have to get over it, I guess, and push through it and eventually trust the process and know that if you develop it enough, it'll turn into something awesome that I might actually want to listen to myself. So I'll take that advice, but
it's just like stage fright. It's kind of a muscle. You do it long enough. People always ask me, are you nervous to go up and do the show? I'm like, well, no, not anymore. I was 15 years ago, but you do it long enough and it kind of just becomes,
business as usual.
yeah.
Or you just hire someone to start yelling at you.
That's another motivational technique. Some people respond to that.
Yeah. Guys, thank you very much for coming on. I appreciate your insight, and please keep me posted on if Raid the Creamery becomes a thing, because I will totally tune in to that. That sounds awesome.
I will.
Coined and minted. We got our YouTube.
It is on our YouTube, and I'm actually going to take it out into other states when we start going out.
Take it on the road.
Yeah, take it on the road.
Okay, that sounds good. But all right, well, thank you guys again. Thanks for being on the show, and I'll post your links and stuff. I'll spread the word. So.
All right.
Thanks.
Yeah, Kelly, thanks. This was great.
All right, well, you guys know what to do now. Please go check out Raid the Quarry everywhere on the internet. They are on Facebook, Instagram, also their YouTube channel, where they do have some funny interviews and things. And then they also have a dedicated domain, which is raidthequarry.com. Hope you guys have enjoyed this episode. And as always, thanks for listening.
Places I know, look more like skin set to be shed. Suddenly, it occurs to me, can't find a life from